Hello there, Dragonfire here. I wanted to hop on and do a video about the Monsterverse movies. Okay, so um, this is the new Monsterverse franchise um, that started in 2014, and um, I kind of watch these movies out of order, which is odd for me. I like to watch things either in release order or if not, maybe in order that the movies are actually supposed to take place in. But this franchise did start with 2014's Godzilla. Um, and this one uh, it is actually interesting. It's the most recent one that I watched with. Um, I kind of It's kind of a long story, but I got the films out of order, so I didn't know um, what was going on. But I found out, oh, this one actually was the first one released, and I found a copy of this yesterday actually at a thrift store that had still been unopened. They had purchased it from Walmart or somewhere, and never got open. Got donated to a thrift store, so I got it for a couple bucks. Um, I um, I thought this movie did okay. I thought it did pretty good. Modern update to the Godzilla story that's been told many times over the years, and this version I think does a pretty good job. Um, I enjoyed this movie. It's one that I would recommend. I think it sets a good tone. First movie in the franchise, in the shared universe. Um, Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I mean, I don't want to give a whole bunch of spoilers away if you haven't seen it, but I mean, it's just uh, it's, I think it's the typical modern update for Godzilla. I really want to go back and watch the originals. I think what I want to do is I want to get my hands on and go back and rewatch because I haven't watched them since I was a kid, but watch the original Godzilla from what is it, the 1950s, I think. The first Godzilla came out in the 1950s. I'd like to watch the original King Kong, which I think came out in the 30s, and uh, the original Godzilla versus King Kong. I don't know if I go into watching any of the other sequels, all the other stuff they've done over the years, but those three, I'd like to see those three movies. Um, okay, so the next one that came out was Kong Skull Island. This one came out 3 years later in 2017. And I got this 3 pack here. And when I got the 3 pack, I didn't realize that Godzilla, that they had done more than one Godzilla movie. So I didn't realize there was an original Godzilla. I thought just Godzilla King of the Monsters was the first one. But anyway, the next one that did come out after the original Godzilla of this particular rebooted franchise was Kong Skull Island. When I saw this in the theater, I didn't know it was part of a shared universe, but you don't really get a hint of that because this is a kind of sort of prequel. Now you could say it's really the first King Kong movie. It's not a prequel to Godzilla because it really has nothing to do with Godzilla. It's just a King Kong movie, but there is a post-credit scene where they tie it in and they make it clear that it's all part of a shared universe. So it's like I want to consider like a Captain America movie that came out after an Iron Man movie a prequel, right? It's two separate things, Captain America and Iron Man, and then you have crossover movies where Captain America and Iron Man are both in it together, but there's still you have Iron Man movies, you have Captain America movies. Same thing I consider with the shared universe. You got Godzilla movies, King Kong movies, and then you have the shared universe when they crossed over. So, um, Yeah, I saw Kong Skull Island in theater. I actually went with my brother to the theater, and we just kind of said, oh, kind of, what kind of, we just wanted to have a fun day together, fun activity to do together. We decided to go watch a movie, and and Kong Skull Island happened to be playing at the time, so we saw it in the theater. So it was the first movie in this shared universe that I saw, and I just rewatched it again yesterday, or last night. And then uh, I also watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, and it was it was interesting when I saw Godzilla King of the Monsters. May have been a little unfair because I hadn't watched the original Godzilla yet, because not knowing that it was a sequel to the other Godzilla from 2014. What year did King of the Monsters come out? Sorry, I'm using my phone here with Wikipedia. So it looks like King of the Monsters came out in 2019, and then Godzilla vs. Kong came out in 2021, and then the new movie just came out like less than a month ago, Godzilla X Kong New Empire. I haven't seen New Empire yet, so I haven't seen them yet. I would be interested in go seeing it. It came out, like I said, less than a month ago right now, because that was March 29th. It's not even April 29th yet, so it's still less than a month ago when I'm recording this video. And um, I I'd be interested in seeing it, but I will say that to me, like King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong were not as good. Now, maybe my perception is skewed because King of the Monsters is a sequel to Godzilla, so maybe if I had watched them in order that they came out, maybe my perspective on King of the Monsters might be a little bit better. Um, but it, because it is a follow up. But I still just don't think it's as good. And Godzilla vs. Kong, I also thought was pretty weak. Um, even though I watched it right after I watched King of the Monsters, I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, and I was just like, I don't know. And this is Godzilla vs. Kong is supposed to come decades after, because Kong Skull Island is a period piece. It's not supposed to take place in the year that it came out in. It mostly takes place in the 70s, right about the time of the withdrawal from the Vietnam War. So Godzilla vs. Kong, when Kong shows back up again, would be decades later. I think the other movies, Godzilla, um, and Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, those all take place in the year of release, whereas Kong Skull Island is a period piece that takes place in the past. But it's bringing back a bunch of the classic monsters that were in kaiju films back in the day. Kaiju is, a Japanese term for these really big, tall, humongous monsters that go around. It really started with Godzilla. I mean, King Kong, you could say, was the first, but King Kong was an American invention, whereas Godzilla was, the first movie was made in Japan, and kaiju is, is the word for these tall, big, scary monster things. So, but you could call all these creatures kaiju, even the ones that were created by Americans. They fit the description of what that Japanese word means, and they did in the original series, which I guess you could say the original shared universe that started with King Kong. I believe was the very first film of this kind of shared universe back in the day. um, of all these kaiju monsters. It was kind of two separate franchises that converged into one. You had the King Kong franchise in America and the Godzilla franchise in Japan, and eventually they merged into one franchise in when they had the crossover film King Kong versus Godzilla back in the day, or was it called Godzilla versus King Kong? I think Godzilla's name may have been first on the billing. Usually, with most of this stuff, they try to go in alphabetical order, so it would make sense to have Godzilla's name be first on the billing. But Uh, but yeah, the original Godzilla versus King Kong, I haven't seen in forever. I did see it when I was a kid, and I saw the original Godzilla, the original King Kong. I think they were all classic movies in their own right. I don't know if the sequels really ever lived up to those classic movies. In the one, I think the crossover between Godzilla and King Kong was pretty good, but Godzilla, they made a bunch of sequels to Godzilla, and I don't know that any of them were ever as good as the original or the crossover with King Kong. But Godzilla definitely back in the day, back in like the 60s and stuff, had a shared universe with all these other monsters that he fought. Um, in some of those, like I think Mothra or whatever, or other creatures like that, um, may have gotten their own standalone films, even with Godzilla not even being in some of those films. Just some standalone films for the other creatures in the shared Godzilla universe. And I know with King Kong, they continued his story. They had like Son of Kong and all this kind of stuff back in the day. But I think they've done a good job in this franchise with world building. There's the whole Hollow Earth thing plays into it, so they've got some world building and some continuity and some stuff like that. And they're saying all these monsters exist. And they're like kind of building up the lore about nuclear technology and how the monsters feed on nuclear technology and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, I think these movies are okay and they're fun action movies. I I don't know that these movies are fantastic. They're not they're not just movies that I would want to watch over and over again, but they're fine for a fun watch. Um, so I will give my ranking. I do think that there is one film in this franchise that is head and shoulders above the other three that I've seen so far. Now, again, I haven't seen the Godzilla X Kong New Empire movie. I haven't seen it yet, so maybe the franchise can improve and get better with some newer entries. Maybe or it can at least be decent. But I wouldn't mind seeing that new movie if I head by a movie theater. I might check it out if it's still in theater. Wait for it to come out on video or find it free streaming or whatever the case may be. But I am going to give my ranking. So I'm going to say coming in last place for me is going to have to be this one right here, Godzilla King of the Monsters. In the middle there, that's going to be my fourth place, 4 out of 4 that I'm ranking. So right now, at least for this shared universe franchise, it has a spot on Mount Rushmore. But again, I haven't seen the fifth movie in the franchise or the shared universe, so it might lose its billing. It might lose its spot on Mount Rushmore because I did not care for King of the Monsters much at all. Um, so we'll see if Godzilla X Kong can beat it um, once I see that movie. My third place, so I'm getting my bronze medal right now, is going to be Godzilla vs. Kong. I will say that I did enjoy this movie more than Godzilla, King of the Monsters, but um, I still thought it had a lot of flaws. And it just didn't grab me and make me care about the movie. I think it did better than the movie before it, and there are some returning human characters from King of the Monsters, and maybe I was more invested in them a little bit more after I'd seen them in the first movie and got and cared maybe a little more, and just the whole movie seemed to put together well. Godzilla vs. Kong seemed to be put together better than King of the Monsters, and so I enjoyed it a little bit more. Um, so I um, I really liked that. That I thought it was a better that they did a better job with Godzilla vs. Kong than they did with King of Monsters. So it gets my bronze medal for now. Again, this could change because again, I haven't seen the fifth movie that just came out. So we'll see if it changes. Okay, so for two, my number two is gonna be uh, the franchise starter with Godzilla. One thing that this movie does really well that I think is lost on the sequels, um, but when you see Godzilla in the two follow-up movies, um, is that this movie makes Godzilla look massive. Um, I think this movie has way better human characters that you can care more about and get more invested in than King of Monsters or Godzilla vs. Kong. So there's a number of things that this movie I feel does better. There is a lot of lead up to the point when we finally get to see the monster and we get to see the monster fights. Um, because it's trying to make you care about the characters, and it does a decent job at that. Um, it's not perfect, but um, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And get to see the monster fights, and out of the three movies to feature Godzilla in the franchise that I've seen so far, this one presents him in the best way and is the best overall movie. But my pick for number one movie in the franchise is going to be Kong Skull Island. Um, it's the gold medal, the cream of the crop. So yeah, this one has the best human characters. It's got Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Reilly, and I don't know the names of the other actors who are in it, but I think all of them do a good job. Um, yeah, I don't think there's any bad acting in this one, which is something I can't say for the other three. In the other three, I can point out some what I feel like are bad acting performances in each of them. But Kong Skull Island has a great cast of human characters, and also you get to see Kong, you get to see him fight people. Again, is it a perfect movie? No, not perfect. I wouldn't say I could pick out a few nitpicks here and there, but it's pretty darn good. It's about it's pretty darn, if this if a perfect movie is an A plus, is this perfect? No, I would say it's a B plus. It's a B plus. It's just right on the edge of being an A of some sort, like an A minus. B plus, A minus. I mean, I like this movie. I like Kong Skull Island way better than I liked it. There's a big gap um, between my number one and my number two. I went back and I just watched Kong Skull Island again, and I thought, wow, this movie is even better the second time around than I remember it being in the theater. So I really enjoyed it. Anyway, that's my thoughts and my review of the Monsterverse franchise. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Dragonfire out.